Well, I only have 30 minutes, people. I want to make this really quick, so I hope you have something to write with and write on, okay? You are allowed to take pictures during this right here if you want. You're going to be exposed to a lot of different terminology, so if you have your iPhones with you, Google it, okay? And you're going to hear that quite a few times, okay? Because, you know, as working with adults, you do need to somehow, they need to take command, they need to be responsible for their own learning. You're not a walking dictionary, so if they don't understand something, and that's about, you know, what task-based learning is about, problem-based learning, phenomena-based learning, project-based learning, all these kinds of different learnings, okay? We cannot be the experts in everything. It's our job just to guide the learning. So here's, and I do believe in the integration of technology into adult learning. So if the students don't know what it is, just tell them to Google it, okay? We live in a modern world, okay? And I do work with modern classrooms, okay? What you're about to hear right here, of course, again, modern classrooms. We are in Russia, and I do believe that most of the classrooms do have access to the internet. Okay, so these are for middle to high resource classrooms. And we'll be talking about adult learning context. And when I say adults, I do mean also teenagers, okay? In this case, too. What you're going to see here is also some things that you actually use for teenagers. So a very quick get to know round here. I just need to see some hands. I'm going to ask some questions here. So how many people in this room are working with primary school students? Can we see some hands here, okay? And secondary school. Do we have any secondary school teachers here, okay? And do we have in university level people here, okay? Oh God, okay, this is wonderful. And what about people who are working just at state schools? Can we see people working at state schools? Okay, people working at private schools, can we see this right there? Okay, and when I say private schools, do I mean private schools like for rich people, or do private schools like private language schools, okay? So is it private language schools? Let's see the hands here, right there. You're the guys who are gonna love this, okay? But this is for everybody here, okay? You know, teachers we are very busy, we have a lot of things to do, a lot of things on our plate, we do have a private life, and we wanna find the most effective way to successfully guide our students through a language learning process, okay? And ready-made mind maps, so I have to say that I am the innovator of ready-made mind maps. I have been teaching for over 30 years. I turned 60 years old this year, and I've decided that I'm going to dedicate the next 2 years to Russia. Okay, so you're going to be seeing a lot of me in Russia, okay? I've traveled all over the world, done conferences all over the world, and little by little, you as my colleagues have always helped me to develop the concept of ready-made mind maps into what it is today. You're going to be seeing a lot of the books that will be coming out about this process, and you will actually get some ready-made mind maps online. You're going to see some here, okay? But what is a ready-made mind map? And how do you really use them in the class? And how can you use them for different things? Okay, well, first of all, I'm going to present to you 12 different reasons why you should be using mind maps inside of your language learning experience, okay? Number one thing is that we as teachers should be promoting the idea, and please take pictures, okay? I'm not going to give this presentation on the internet, okay? But of course, you'll be able to find it. Okay, activate 4 C's of the 21st century learning. What are they? Communication, creativity, collaboration, and critical thinking. Are we doing that in our class? Can we see that checklist that we're really doing this in our class? And how are we doing this? You need to ask yourself, this is what we should be doing, but how are we doing it? And the next thing that we should be doing is we should be removing the concepts of chalk and talk, print and push, drill and kill, and voice and choice. Okay? We should need to be promoting voice and choice because collaborative learning doesn't really work without voice and choice. But what is chalk and talk? Chalk and talk, that's another phrase to actually explain very old-fashioned, traditional frontal teaching, where it's a teacher-centered teaching. Stand at the board, flip chart, write things there, with a piece of chalk in your hand, and the students are basically just looking at you, okay? Well, that doesn't really work anymore, okay? And you shouldn't be doing that in the classroom because this is not what a modern classroom should look like, okay? But sadly true, but it does happen, okay? Print and push, those are the teachers who like to get a textbook, run to the copy machine 30 minutes before the class and copy a lot of things and call this preparation, okay? And we know that that's not, you can do that a couple of times. Some people might even call that dog meat, okay? But that's not really a good class. And how many times can you do that before the students catch on to what you're doing, okay? And really, what is that leading to? Drill and kill. Oh, let's conjugate the present simple verb of to be today, and we're going to do this. And all the lessons are around that and grammar and the whole thing. That's not really good teaching, okay? Maybe you can do that with young kids. And in primary school, to be honest with you, drill and kill is actually not bad. How did we learn math? Like 1 times 1 is 1, 1 times 2 is 2. Rote learning, drilling. And for young kids, we need that because, language acquisition for second language, we're going to need that. But there comes a time when we reach like B1 level that we need something else. And you can't be doing this drill and kill anymore because that's not going to motivate students, okay? Voice of choice. We need to give our students choice in what they're doing in the classroom. They need to have a voice. They need to have an agency in the classroom. And how do we do that? Well, we need to be integrating technology into the classroom. For those of you who say, I don't like computers, I don't like the internet, social media, forget it. They're finding out too many things about me. Excuse me, our students are using social media, and we need to learn how to integrate that into the learning process. I have my students create Facebook sites, do blogging, do all kinds of different things. It works out perfect because they're already on Facebook. And for the ones who have phobias about social media and stuff, we'll let them have a fake name. Facebook is full of fake names, okay? But as long as they create some kind of Facebook site where they're collaborative, virtual learning, that is fantastic. Let us not forget that a Facebook site that students create to exchange materials is also learning, okay? And they can be in contact with one another. Learning does not only happen in the classroom. And so how are you doing that? Because you should be integrating technology into the learning process. Meaningful learning. Students want meaningful learning, and I want to start with teenagers. I'm a trained primary school teacher as well as a secondary school teacher, but I decided after 6 months of primary school teaching that wasn't for me. So I decided to go to secondary school. And then after that, I decided to go back to university, study economics, and get a real job. Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah. Of course, I was very young, but I always wanted to be a teacher. That was something I always wanted to be. And I couldn't really be a teacher like I wanted to be in private industry because I was working with adults. Okay, but one thing I always knew that meaningful learning is what adults want, and teenagers want too. They want to learn something now that they need now. And we always think of now, they got to learn for the test. But is learning for the test meaningful learning? No. Okay. It's not going to give them something they can use in the future. And that's what meaningful learning means. Something that they're learning now that they can also use in the future. Ready-made mind maps allows them to do that, and you as well too. We want to optimize and energize everything that we're doing in the classroom. And so we want to optimize that in-class learning experience, and it can be fantastic when you use a ready-made mind maps and you get away from that textbook. And online learning experience. I have to say that when I first started trying this out, I did online learning for over 9 years with MBA students at a major German university. I am a lecturing professor at a major university with over 50,000 students. And I'm also responsible for the development, implementation, and assessment of the employees of the university, who are the scientists, the professors, the researchers, and the administrative staff. And I developed programs for them as well too, and I have 3,800 of them, okay? So I'm always staying busy with stuff. We need to optimize those learning because the university only gives us a certain amount of money and a certain amount of time to achieve certain goals. So I have to think about what I'm going to really be doing here. When we're in the classroom, we ask people questions and then we expect them to know the answer to that. There's a little bit of maybe hesitance. Sometimes we perceive that as a reluctance. But people need time. They need time to solve problems. And if we're doing project-based learning, PBL, problem-based learning, phenomenon-based learning, or task-based learning, we need to give them that time. We need to respect the fact that not everybody can pop up an answer really quick. And so ready-made mind maps helps you to do that, and you learn how to do that. And of course, that has something to do with time management. We all, we work here, and if you've been a teacher for more than 2 years, that time management is a serious problem with students, okay? They sometimes don't have enough time to do that. You know, students are very creative when it comes to making excuses, okay, of why they didn't do the homework, okay? Here, let's talk about textbooks. I have nothing against textbooks. I think textbooks are fantastic, okay, for getting ideas, putting things together. But the textbook is not really the lesson plan, okay? And it really shouldn't be, okay? And you shouldn't be standing in front of that copy machine making a lot of copies, and this is going to be your lesson. We need to start learning how to reduce that dependence that we have as teachers on textbooks and start learning to be creative and really create something wonderful for the students and create a positive learning experience for them. I mean, you sometimes wonder to yourself, why are my attendance rates going down? Why are people making excuses all of a sudden for not coming to class and they're coming late and they're not doing their work, they're not participating? Could be that because you're just using the textbook. Could be one of the reasons, okay? Or maybe using the textbook in the wrong way, okay? So we want to get away from all that. And what do textbooks have that sometimes the reason we love them, a lot of teachers love them, because we know it's going to happen. We know what's going to happen in that textbook, and it guides us through all of that and gives us sometimes activities that while you think, you know, you're killing time and doing that, fill in the blank, you know, multiple choice and all that stuff, that just gives students sometimes a false sense of accomplishment because at the end of the day, do they really know it? Ask them that 1 week later about a present perfect continuous question. Do they know it? Not really. So here, we want to get away from prescribed learning. And that's what's inside of the textbook. It's prescribed. Okay? The doctor, you go to the doctor, you have an ailment, something, you tell him what all the pains are, and then he gives you a pill and it goes away. We use the textbook and think it's going to go away, okay? But it doesn't. It sometimes makes the problems even worse, okay? And we also want to get away from pre-given grammar structures that are in the textbook. This chapter is going to be about the present perfect. And then we try to do all the lessons around that. But that's not how real life works. Today is Monday, and I'm going to do the present perfect and speak the present perfect all day long. Okay? And Tuesday, I'm going to do the past simple. Okay? That's how I'm going to talk all day long. Okay? Life doesn't work that way. It's a bunch of mixed up grammar. Okay? And that's how we need to give students to really make language learning real for them. Okay? And it's a bunch of mixed up stuff. Okay? And also, we just want to create a 360-degree positive dynamic learning experience for them. Support skills learning, oh God, okay. You know, students come to us and they have all kinds of skills that we sometimes don't take advantage of, and we should be supporting that and what they bring to the table. But we also need to know that what are the skills? There are two passive skills to active skills. Active skills of speaking and writing, and passive skills of reading and listening. Are we really doing that in the classroom and in a real way? Okay. Instead of giving them some kind of video that was prepared by a company that's trying to promote their book, which doesn't really, they're actors, you know, doing something, and it's not a real life situation. Okay. This is why I never use CDs in the room for listening. You wouldn't find that in my classroom. Okay. It just wouldn't happen. Okay. But I do use YouTube. Because this is how, you know, we listen with our eyes, okay? I speak 5 languages, okay? And English is my mother language. My mother's German, so I speak fluent German. I live in Germany. But, you know, I grew up in the United States, educated, acculturated, socialized in the United States. I'm an American. English is my mother language. I also speak Spanish. My father's from Barcelona. I come from a Jewish family. I speak Hebrew as well, too. And, of course, I was an exchange student in Paris, so I had to learn French. Ask me what my least favorite language is, and I'll tell you something about Paris. Okay, but you know, I thought that everybody could learn like that, you know, but they can, they really can. Okay, if you just give them real life situations. I asked myself, how did I learn? And I used my life experience, okay, to teach other people that it is possible to learn other languages. I'm going to be learning Russian. Any suggestions? So here, we need to support research and curation skills as well. If they're teenagers and we're working with middle school students, this is an important skill that they need to learn because they're going to need this at university. And if they're students who are doing any kind of vocational learning, they're going to need this as well to have success in the vocation. Not everybody can be an academic. And I love working with vocational students as well too. I do work at one vocational school. We need to be teaching that, and a lot of people have all social media, all the internet stuff, but they don't know how to really use it to effectively learn a language. That's our job to teach them how to do that. Okay, and here, use our students' social capital. How many people in this room speak Russian as a mother language? Can I see some hands here? Now, we don't have enough time, but I do want to ask you, how did you learn that language? Did your parents give you some copies from a textbook and tell you, please fill in the blanks? Here's a multiple choice. Let's conjugate the verbs. No. You actually, scientific studies see that you acquire the language in a natural way from natural environmental situations, and that you learn to smile because your mother smiled at you. You learn what that means, what happy and sad and hurt and pain, okay, all that means, okay? So here, number 10, storytelling, and we got to learn how to tell stories, okay, and product creation and creativity. We got to be doing that as well too, in the classroom. And we forget to take breaks sometimes during the learning and really ask, okay, the students, did they to check to see if they really learned that? Sometimes we wait till the end and it's too late. And we want to give them a test and realize they didn't really know it. And we should have checked in the middle or during the learning process, okay? So here, I'm going to go on from questions, and I'm going to show you something really here. This is the mind map right here that I give my students, okay? And in the beginning of what do you really want to cover, okay? And I ask them, this is a voice of choice. They tell me what they want to know. I also know what they need to learn too, okay? I combine the two. But I start using worksheets to help them, okay? They fill it out, they talk, just groups, and then this is what I visualize on the board. I drew this mind map right here. This is the results of that worksheet, wrote that, and we start getting them to mind map already in the beginning. And we get them to start writing as well, and they explain what they want. Now, I take this right here and turn it into a list. This was done by a student who just happened to have a laptop in the classroom. It took her about 10 minutes from the mind map that I had written on board. Then we turn it into something that we can really work with. And then the students talk about and they rate the topics, okay? Again, voice and choice, we go deeper into that. And then, of course, math, we see, that 20 of the students really like topic number 3. Then maybe we'll do that and we start to prioritize it in that way. So the students feel that they really have some kind of choice in the learning process. And then what do I do from this right here? I give the students their first task. Okay, and I tell them, if these are the topics that you chose, now you have to go to the internet and find something to read. So let's find some good articles, and they start finding the articles to read, not me. And then we put that all together to create a reader. We put it together, and there's different ways to do it, the results from the reader. We can put it all together on Facebook. We can, do that. We can do a language management site or something like that. I use Moodle, or I can print it out. Printing it out is too much work, it's not cost effective, and this way they say I don't have it with me, but if there's something on the internet, on Facebook, they can always have access to it. Because the students always tell me, I lost the homework. I tell them, well, let me see your phone. If they have a phone, they have the homework. Okay? So they can't lie to me, okay? And so here, I want to show you something that I do here with, to brainstorm. Again, Russian culture. I do happen to work for an international company as well too. We have different teams, and we have a Russian team as well. And my job was to make sure that the Germans, the Russians, the Americans, the British get along with one another. And one of the things is, hey, let's learn about each other's culture. So I got the Russians together and I told them, what do you want to teach the Americans? What do you want to teach the Germans? And so many things came up of what they wanted to teach. But the goal is let's overcome some of the taboos, some misconceptions, some stereotypes of Russians, and I have to tell you, this was a fantastic experience for me. This prepared me for me coming to Russia as well too, I have to say. But they filled out this worksheet, and then of course, what did I do? We let them talk to each other, and they were just talking with, mind mapping, brainstorming. After that, this is what I wrote on a piece of paper that came from that thing right there. I just wrote this and put it all together, okay? And what happened was, we created a list. And then from that list, I gave them already the topics, okay? And each group got their own thing, and they had to do it, a little presentation. And we had a 4-hour half day with breakfast and also a coffee break where they all came into the room, the Germans, the Americans, and all the Russians came to the front and they did this workshop. And everybody had 25 minutes or 30 minutes to do their little workshop of overcoming, what could you learn? What could you learn about Russian culture? The one that really was good was 10 facts about Russian culture you need to know. Okay, that was fantastic. Okay, so people came up and they said, you need to know this, you need to know that, you need to know that. Okay, fantastic. Okay, so one of the things came out of that, the result of a mind map and just a little worksheet. Okay, and here I don't have to go into this right here. We know that role plays are very, very important, okay? This right here is for business English. We can use this. People need to understand. I drew these. I have 1,200 of these, by the way. We'll be seeing a lot of these, okay? I do this. It took me about 10 years to put these all together. Of course, you will have access to these slowly but surely. People need to know about job satisfaction. And this is what's called a ready-made mind map. This is the little bastard baby of a flow chart and a mind map together, okay? And because I have to solve a lot of problems, okay? And here, this is what a student did. This is an example of a student's work, okay? The students are mind mapping already from a mind map that I gave them. And this is fantastic because why? Students need to be writing before we allow them to speak, okay? Because this is very important for adults. They just want to speak and put a lot of sentences together that doesn't make any sense. The mind maps that I you will see that I put together are always, before I release them, researched, proofread, and tested on over 1,000 students before I release them to be used. Okay, and the language school, the School of Education at the university that I work at, loves this project. They've been working on it for over 10 years. Okay? So, and here we want them to do a little role play, okay? And after they do the role play, we talk about it, but they're getting a real life experience. And this one right here, this is teamwork, okay? People need to learn about teamwork. This is a ready-made mind map about teamwork. And guides them through that. You'll see it's like a flow chart because it has numbers. They work in little groups, okay? And when you look at a ready-made mind map, we want to make our lives easy. Ready-made mind maps are lesson plans ready to go, okay? So you don't need a textbook anymore. Isn't it wonderful that you wake up in the morning and you get one of these that are laminated, it's about this size, and you only need one. You put it on the door, and you have to train your students. They come into the room and they take a picture of only this. You don't have to go to the copy machine anymore, and everybody has their phone. The smart students bring their pads with them, okay? Or they get their phone and they have their laptop too, and they send it to themselves and have it on the laptop too. Paper. The students have something to write. They start to research and curate it, and it's going. And you've got a 4-hour lesson going, maybe even a 6-hour lesson, just from one little mind map. A product's going to be created, presentation, speaking, writing, reading is going on. And you just don't need any more than that. In the morning when I leave to do my business classes, just take one of these right here, because I know that they work, it's been proven. And let the students create the language. Quit teaching so much, okay? And start letting, and there's a difference between teaching and learning. And always ask yourself, am I teaching? But are they learning? And what are they learning? How are they learning? These help you to really put an emphasis on learning and teaching in the background. Learning comes in the forefront. I give them a worksheet that they can work with to make it dummy-proof. All the mind maps do come with a worksheet. They need something to write on, okay? This is the paper that I sometimes have to have, okay? But then again, I have textbook sites that I put this stuff on too, so there's no excuses, okay? I do tell my students, you better come to class with a fully charged telephone, okay? That's one thing you do need to do, okay? Because that's the end of having success, okay? They work together in little groups. They have their laptop. You see they have their iPhones there too. They're working it out, okay? And here, product. They have to make a presentation. And that's how the ready-made mind maps work. It's been wonderful coming to Russia to do this. I started last year. And again, you'll start seeing more of these. Google me, where you'll get more of the mind maps. Does anybody have any questions? That's a lot for 30 minutes. Okay, so would anybody like to ask a question about ready-made mind mapping?
What do you do with students that don't have enough language in their minds?
Everything that I do is based on V1, okay? So all the mind maps you see from experiments, from research, always on V1, V2, C1, C2. A1 and A2 beginners level, different kinds of didactics and pedagogies that are involved in really beginners, and that's a different kind of learning, where they do need to take a lexical approach, learn a lot of vocabulary and grammar. By the time they get to B1, they need tasks, they need to be working, okay? And that's even for teenagers as well too, okay? Question? Well, I want you to Google cognitive grammar. Again, I asked the question, how did you learn your mother language? Your parents did not give you a copy from a textbook and tell you to please constantly fill in the gaps and multiple choice, okay? And artificial grammar. We learn grammar by making mistakes, trial and error, and somebody correcting us. Let the mistakes happen and then you correct it instead of teaching something that might bore people. We are talking about adults and teenagers today. Go on to videos and YouTube and things like that. You would be surprised how much grammar you're teaching that you shouldn't be teaching. Google cognitive grammar. What is it and how does cognitive grammar work? In other words, let grammar happen. And let grammar have mistakes happen. Then teach it. Instead of teaching something that's going to bore people to death. You wonder why people aren't coming to the class anymore? You've been teaching too much grammar. Question? Sure, that's yes, you can use these right here for your class that you want to talk about. You have a 1 hour 30-minute class. And yes, you can use them for just shorter things or for long-term things. Okay? There's a lot of possibilities that you can use for that. Imagine having that, putting it on the table, and you're just going to have a conversation about teamwork. No writing, informal, that's called play. No, I don't believe in doggy, but I'm doing it.
All right, and we have just a minute for one more question. Do you ever use any textbooks?
No. I don't need textbooks. But I have 1,200 mind maps ready to go. I would say that I still use the textbooks, and because I am the head of a language department at a major university, I do own 3 schools. I have to tell you that I have probably, I think, 12 billets full of textbooks. I don't even know what to do with them anymore because textbooks start to repeat themselves after a while, okay? To be honest with you, I use them for ideas of seeing, what's the new textbooks, what's out, what are they talking about and stuff to see if it still fits with some of my ideas. But to be honest with you, I personally don't need a textbook. And I train my teachers to get away from the textbooks, okay? Because textbooks, they're great for us to learn, get some ideas, but the textbook should not be the main way to manipulate second language acquisition. I believe that. Are there any publishers in this room? Thank you very much.